In this video, we're going to take a look at another example of using the if function. What we have here is a simple grade book, and we have student names, we have student scores, and we have a place where we need to calculate the grades. And the way that we determine, this is just pass-fail, so we've got to choose from one of two things, which is exactly what the if statement or the if function is for. And we want to compare this number with this number. If this number is greater than or equal to this number, then we put the letter P, otherwise we put the letter F. Okay, so I'm going to have to put an if function here because I want to decide whether to put P or F in, and whenever you have to make a decision about what goes in a cell, you have to use the if function. And I'm going to need a logical test though, so I'm going to go over here to column, actually I use column D here. I'm going to put my logical test in column D. So my logical test, it's a formula, remember, so I start with an equal sign. I want to know if this number is greater than or equal to this number over here. And we're not going to use the number 70, we're going to use E2, so if we ever change that number, it will be easy to change it without changing our formulas. So that needs to be an absolute cell reference, so we need to put the dollar signs in and hit enter. And so true means that the student passed, false will mean that they did not pass. Let's drag that down. And it looks like 65, 55, and 64 are all failing grades. So true is a pass grade and false is a failing grade. So now we can go up here and let's go to our formulas, let's go to logical, and let's choose if. Okay. Now I've already done the logical test. It is this cell right here. And the value of true should be a capital P. Now watch what happens when I click out of this second box here. Excel puts quotation marks around the letter P. And I'm going to put the letter F if it's false, and when I tab out of there, it also puts quotation marks around it. That's important. The quotation marks are required. I'm going to click on OK, and it tells me that this person passed, and if I copy that formula all the way down, it tells me who passed and who failed. Let's go back here and center align that so it looks a little better. Okay, and that works just fine. If you don't want to have this stuff visible, you can right click on it and you can choose to hide it, or you can put it someplace else. Let's cut it and just paste it over here. And Excel is smart enough to actually fix those formulas for us. So we still get the same values. And here it changed these so that they refer to L2. So if you want to just use some free space off to the side here, that's fine. And then when it's time to print, you just don't include that in your print area, you just print this stuff. You can also right click on it and hide it if you want to make it completely invisible. So that is one way to get this to work. We're going to look at another way to get it to work, and that is without using a separate column over here to compute your logical test. So let's go to, we'll just delete all of them here. So I'm going to select them all, hit the delete key, and then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to do the formulas, and I'm going to go to logical, and I'm going to choose if. And my logical test, I'm going to put the logical test in myself this time. So I want to know if B2 is greater than or equal to $E $2. Okay? So I want to know if this is greater than or equal to this. And if it is, then the letter is P, and if it's not, the letter is F. And again, it puts quotation marks in. Click on OK, and it should tell me this person passed. And then if I click and drag down here, it correctly computes whether the student passed or failed. And I don't need this stuff anymore. I can right click on it and hit the delete key, or not right click, but click on it and hit the delete key, and everything still works. So you can do it either way. If you think it's easier to break it down in small steps, which I think it is, then feel free to use an extra column over here. If you're comfortable with just combining it all into one step, that works too. Now I want to show you one thing about this formula right here. I'm going to double click on it. And hang on a second, let's zoom in on it. And now I'm going to double click on it so it's a little bit easier to see. Excel put the quotation marks in. Now if I were just typing this up myself rather than going through the function arguments dialog box, I would have to put the quotation marks in myself. And I'm going to delete them. And I'm going to show you what happens if you don't put those in. Those are very important. I'm going to hit the enter key now after editing that. and I get an error that says name question mark, and when Excel wants you to know that you've done something wrong, it tries to make it as visible as possible. It'll put like a pound sign, it'll put the error in caps, it'll put a question mark or an exclamation mark or something like that in there. And they should probably actually make it red too, but they don't. And there's a little tab in the corner as well. And if I click on this cell, this little symbol comes here, an exclamation mark with a yellow diamond around it. And if you click on it, doesn't really tell you much. Most of these don't tell you very much. So I've got an invalid name. Well, what's an invalid name? Well, here's what an invalid name is. When you're doing formulas in Excel, you can have cell references like B2, and they can be absolute like E2. You can have, and cell references always start with a letter or a $ followed by a letter. And so that's how Excel knows that you're referring to a cell. Functions, like the sum function, the average function, min and max and count, and now the if function, always start with a letter as well. So cell references start with a letter, and function names start with a letter. And if I put something there without the quotation marks around it, Excel thinks that I'm referring to maybe something in column P and I left the number off. Or maybe there's a function called P, or a function that starts with P, and I just didn't put all the letters in for the name of the function. So it's trying to interpret that as either a cell reference or a function name, not as just the letter P. The way that you tell it it's just the letter P and not a cell reference and not the name of a function is you have to put the quotation marks in. I'm going to put the quotation marks back in. Okay. Same thing with the letter F. If I want the letter F to appear, I have to put quotation marks around it. Okay, let's go ahead and hit enter. And now we've got all the correct values in here for column C. So that's another example of the if function in Excel.